what hands can he bet the flop with, raise pre-flop, bet the flop with, and check the turn with?
A hand you're beating, you'd think.
All of his misses, yeah.
Yeah.
All of his, I've raised pre-flop with 6-7 of hearts. It's come Queen 3 Jack with 2 clubs. The guy's checked, I've bet, and he's called. On the turn, an 8 comes. Now 6-7 of hearts. Look at 6-7 of hearts on this board. It's a nothing hand. You know, even Ace King on this board is not that great a hand. He's got 2 overs and a gut shot, but I've check called him, so he probably figures me for some sort of pair. So a lot of the time when he checks a turn, you've got to say a large proportion of his range is going to be hands that haven't connected with this flop.
Okay.
Another part of his range is going to be hands that have connected with the flop in some way, that want to take a free card on the turn, that don't want to get check raised. So let's say, for example, he's got King 10. He's raised, I've called, I've checked, he's bet, I've called. On the turn comes an 8. Some people with a hand like King 10 or a flush draw or some sort of drawing hand like checking behind on the turn in position to take a free card to the river. Some people like to double barrel again. But the people that like to double barrel, if they're good players, have to figure out what I can reasonably fold. You know, when now I've picked up a gutter ball, I think if he fired 20k into this turn, I might get curious and look him up again, to be perfectly honest. Anyway, it's gone check, check. Rivers of 5, bringing the flush. Now, I still haven't completely fully finished constructing a range for him on the turn, which includes his checks, so his air, some of his draws, and also some of his marginal hands. Sorry, I can use a mouse here. Maybe he's got like bottom pair that he wants to show down. Maybe he's got ace king for ace high he wants to show down. You know, because if I've got king 9, I might check call one hand on the flop, and he might think ace king's got some showdown value. He might have a jack that he wants to show down. If he's a very tight solid player, he might even have a queen that he might want to just check behind for one street for pot control. But now the flushing card comes, and I don't see any value in betting here, personally. I don't think that when I bet here, I'm going to get called by worse often enough to make my bet profitable. So I think what I'm going to do is check and try and get this hand to showdown. I have checked, right? Now, what do I want him to do, do you think?
You want him to check?
You
really don't want to be facing, you know, say if you have to face a 35k bet here, you're not going to be happy.
I don't think he's going to overbet the pot, but I don't really want to face a 20k bet.
Or even 15k.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just quite happy to check this down. I don't think, given that the way this hand is played out, that there's that many hands on the river that can bet that I can beat, apart from his bluffs. And he could be bluffing because he checked behind on the turn. Now he's made a really small bet of 9,600. So he's laying me 4-1 on the call.
It's quite a clever bet, if he's bluffing.
I don't think he is bluffing in this spot. I think I should call this, and I actually remembered that I folded this on the river mainly because I know the way this guy plays. And just the fact that he checked behind on the turn, I don't think he's really going to be betting Jack 7 here or Ace 3 here, which are the kind of only hands that I think.
So what kind of hand you put him on here?
Personally, now, given that we didn't get to showdown, I put him on, you know,
King Queen,
a queen that
Queen
checked
10
behind.
maybe.
Yeah, I put him on basically kind of a top pair, or maybe even a king jack type hand, a second pair. It's a bet that says to me, I mean, here's the thing, I don't want to be exploited all the time, and if I keep folding on the river, getting 4-1 with second pair, then people can just bet really small into me, and I'm just going to keep folding. But given that you don't gain that much history with people in the tournament, yeah, because yeah, I've been on BR Savage's table for a long while, but in a cash game, when I'm playing six-handed, I could be playing the same players for 5 hours straight, and there's tons of history that builds up, and there's tons of dynamics. And, you know, I can't fold second pair for getting 4-1 on the river, maybe in a cash game. But in a tournament, this still represents quite a significant proportion of my stack on the river. I don't think he's bluffing here, betting a third of the pot on the river. And I think, having played with him before, this bet normally means some sort of queen, some sort of jack. You know, against a lot of other players, I would probably not like it very much and call. But I've ended up folding, which is a very, very conservative route. I mean, here's the thing. Is it a good fold or is it a bad fold? I only have to be right a very small percentage of the time.
1 in 4.
Yeah. So I only have to be right a very small percentage of the time for me to make that call as profitable.
If it was a
and I
bigger
do
bet,
have second
if it was
bet.
a bigger bet, do you think longer?
If it was a bigger bet, I think longer. But his bet sizing told me that he was like...
He really wants a caller.
You don't, when you're bluffing, you don't tend to bluff a third of the pot on the river, right?
No.
You tend to bluff more because you're bluffing and you want the person to fold. But with his bet size on the river, it kind of told me that I didn't have the best hand and I wanted to save 1/8 of my stack. And it was like, if he had done that, what they call it, what is it, a post-oak bluff, where it's a bluff but it's very small to make it look like he wants a call.
Yeah.
More power to him, I suppose. But it's a fairly interesting hand because I actually think the discussion of those type of hands in tournaments are really, really important because those are the hands that you come up with.
And you were going to go and skip it.
Yeah, and I was going to go and skip it. But I think those hands are the hands that come up most frequently in
Well, I think they're
tournaments.
the ones that either make or break a good tournament player. You know, these key hands, it wasn't a massive pot, but it could have been a catalyst for you to actually go on and do well in this tournament.
It really is quite a big pot. With these blind levels, every pot now that you play is significant. And I think, personally, in tournaments, the biggest leak I see in a lot of players is defending out of position. It's very hard to play poker out of position. And I think one of the biggest things that bad players do is they, defend poorly, don't defend often enough, and generally play their out of position hands in tournaments very poorly. The very good tournament players in England that I've played with, like, Willie Tan is very good defending out of position. John Duthie's very good at defending out of position. I mean, they're very hard to play. They will defend their blinds like their firstborn child.
Yeah.
And because they've played so many hands out of position in tournaments, with the stack sizes being quite shallow, they've actually become very good at it. In a cash game, it's just purely and simply not profitable to be playing too many hands out of position because the stacks are a lot deeper, people can put a lot more pressure on you, and even defending to a cut-off raise with a hand like ace deuce of spades, people think, oh, suited ace in the big blind, late position raise, must be ahead. I mean, if you actually try and defend ace deuce of spades out of the big blind all of the time to a cut-off raise, I think you're going to lose money. But in a tournament, you kind of almost have to start defending more out of position, and it's a very, very tricky area. And that hand, I think, possibly could have been the most important hand that we've seen on the video so far, and I really believe in it because it's defending marginal hands out of position, and the way the hand played through and what I'm putting him on and what we're thinking. I actually thought that hand had a lot of good content in it. Like, you wanted to check raise the flop and then the hand, and there's a lot of discussion that can come up in that hand.